Hey, hello everybody. It's John. I haven't had a chance to do this for a while because there's been so much going on in my life, and especially the events that transpired from October 28th until October 31st, where Kristen texted me at about 4 a.m. Thursday going into Friday, and asked me to come and get her. So at that time, I answered the phone and I said, "Where are you?" It took a little while for her to reply, and then I went and picked up Kristen. I won't divulge where I picked her up, but needless to say, Kristen is an abused woman. Kristen is in dangerous territory when it comes to overdose. I don't know who she was with. I don't know who lives where I found her. I only know what happened after that, and that it was not like, I was dealing with an abused woman or somebody damn sure putting on an Academy Award winning performance as an abused woman. Kristen was beat up, her legs were bruised and scratched, and she showed me her arms to basically say that she's not doing intravenous drugs. But when I hugged her, it was like hugging a bird, for God's sake. And yeah, people will call me stupid and say I enabled her. I gave Kristen $500, begged her not to steal from me and not to trash my apartment while I was going to Philadelphia. And I had the house under surveillance by Brooks Investigations from 7 p.m. till midnight every night, but Kristen was using everything that I told her in good faith against me and allowing somebody or somebodies to come and go, from the beach, from Lake Champlain across the backyard and up into my apartment. But that's just the beginning. Here's what's coming next. I just spent $272 at Staples creating 3 copies of the documents that are coming next. We're only going to review the quick part of this today to tell you everybody what's coming. And again, to document it, because who knows, what Lawless might do. He could send somebody up here and have me killed. He could, stage something like I don't know if he did, but they could make it look like I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm 11 months cancer-free and very grateful for every minute of every day. Every breath I take is another one that reminds me that I probably should not be here. People don't just recover from stage 2 esophageal cancer, and it can return at any time. Here's a heartbreaking thing about my diagnosis with cancer. It's very hard to forgive certain things in all these proceedings when the court, the officers of the court, the mother of my children, and all these people, even when I was diagnosed with cancer and went before the court in August of 2021, before beginning chemotherapy and radiation, and asked them to initiate some type of communication with my children, they denied me any type of telephone contact, anything. I wanted my daughters to be notified that I had cancer and to try to start talking to them at that time. Then again in November, after that was denied in August, in November I went back when I found out that I was scheduled to have my entire esophagus removed on January 24th, 2022, which didn't happen. When I went back on December 4th of 2021, they told me that my cancer was gone and that I should go and live my best life. So here I am. I continued all through the fight. But yes, these people, Bruno, Crookshank, Lawless, Kristen Carnahan, they all sat there in court and basically said, "We don't care if you're dying, Mr. Maiden. You're not going to see your children. And we don't care anything about how you protest or what you have to say. We're going to deny it." We, of course, are the ones who created this alienation, and it's court-sanctioned, court-enforced, set up with such teeth that if I sneeze or step on a crack going down the street, they're going to throw me in prison. They're going to throw me in jail, and they don't care. Lawless, like I said, has done this 3 times before. Anyway, here's what's coming. Family Court, State of New York, County of Clinton, in the matter of a contempt of court proceeding under the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, also called the Uccjea, under Article 5A of the Domestic Relations Law. I, John Maiden, the petitioner, against Kristen Carnahan and Lynn Ormsby, who seem to be, not seem to be, geez, these people are, colluding, conspiring. When Kristen and Ricky were awarded temporary custody of these 4 little girls after, months, if not years, of abuse, neglect, domestic violence, keeping them out of school, they're now set back a year. After all that time, Kristen and Ricky appeared in court high as fuck. They were out of their minds high that day. I went and got right in Ricky's face and looked him dead in the fucking eyes, and I told him I knew what was going on and that I was going to do my damnedest to stop it. But he was fucking high. His pupils were... Look, I'm not going to go into it. I think they're heroin addicts is what I think. Kristen told me that she had bags of heroin on her the other night. She also had one of those big barrels like this that, pretzel nuggets come in full of weed. Full of beautiful looking fucking weed. Anyway. My God. So it's me, John Maiden, against Kristen Carnahan and Lynn Ormsby. Now, mind you, on this scheduling order, there were 15 different petitions. Lawless came in and, is attempting to wave his magic wand, and he sat up there without even mentioning a docket number in our last proceeding and got rid of, all but 5 of these, which involve Kristen against me, Ormsby against me against Kristen, me against Ormsby, me against the world, basically. But I'm the only one standing between, Kristen and Lynn having my daughters taken from New York State to Alabama. And this is not just like by accident. We're talking about Cheryl Maxwell deliberately writing a temporary custody order that can't even be enforced in New York State. There's just not enough information to establish that the girls lived in New York State and that they're being taken out of state illegally. And that's intentional. I mean, if I submitted, in paralegal school, if they gave us an exercise to go ahead and write the temporary custody order that would come out of these proceedings, you have to have an address, obviously. You have to identify who's living in the household, how they support themselves, all of these different kind of things, none of which is done in these documents. What they're attempting to do and what we're getting into is they're moving my daughters out of state, and Lawless is good at this. They're attempting to run out a 6-month clock, which then strengthens all their claims in Alabama, and that's according to this very statute. Now, what we're talking about here doesn't require anybody to come in and give testimony or anything like that, because God knows they'll fuck me over in a minute, as they have for the last 10 years. And now we got the clown prince of fuck you over, Timothy Lawless, sitting on the bench again. He was... My God, it's all documented. So this is an order to show cause under the Uccjea, the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act. Our family unit number is 10590. There's all these docket numbers included. I've got the old ones between me and Kristen, and now the new ones, the new docket numbers, when Ormsby submitted, her custody petition. Upon the petitions of John Maiden, verified on April 20th, 2022 and June 17th, 2022, and attached to this order to identify and prevent Lawless from acting in violation of the Uccjea Article 5 and New York State Domestic Relations Law 75D, 76D, and 77H. There is no denying the cover-up by Bruno, Lawless, Cruikshank, Dupree, Carnahan, and Ormsby, Maxwell in service of this conspiracy. I go on to say shame on Clinton County. These facts are self-evident. I'm calling on Lawless and Bruno to accept responsibility for their actions and demand that Maiden be awarded full custody of Elizabeth, Victoria, and Aurelia Maiden forthwith. And stop court-sanctioned child abuse, parental alienation, and malignant, pervasive abuse of power by Lawless, Bruno, and their accomplices, Alan Cruikshank and Cheryl Maxwell. It is hereby ordered that Kristen Carnahan and Lynn Ormsby show cause before this court at the Clinton County Government Center, 137 Margaret Street in Plattsburgh, New York. This court will be presided over by Lawless. He's going to sit up there again and pretend like this is some righteous, proceeding, and it's a sham. It's Kangaroo Keith's daddy here. Lawless is Kangaroo Keith's daddy. So here we go. It's going to be on Margaret. I took the date that they set up for December 9th when they were supposed to begin these petitions, and I'm using it to make them address this order to show cause. So it's hereby ordered that Kristen Carnahan and Ormsby show cause before the court at that place, the courthouse, presided over by Lawless and Family Court, and prevent Lawless, Maxwell, Cruikshank, Carnahan, and Ormsby from claiming home state jurisdiction in Daphne, Alabama, in direct violation of the Uniform Child Custody and Jurisdiction Enforcement Act, Article 5, on December 9th, 2022 at 9 a.m. So if you're not doing anything and you can swing by Clinton County Courthouse on December 9th, there's going to be a shit show. But it won't look like you expect, because Lawless, he never allows stuff to be read in court. He doesn't introduce anything. He sits up there as King Timmy, Tiny Tim up there, and just dismisses shit, and then says he'll do it with prejudice, tries to inflame things to the point where I'll say something stupid and then he can throw me in jail. What the hell? We're going to support court on November 17th. Anyway, so in lieu of the next iteration of judicial abuse of power and misconduct by Lawless, scheduled to commence on that date and time, please stop this heinous, reprehensible, deliberate strategy to whitewash these proceedings, traumatize minor children, separate Maiden from his daughter since 2012, and enable the interstate movement and custody of the children to Alabama. That's what we're trying to stop, basically. Why an order should not be made and requested in the annexed petitions correcting years of child abuse by Clinton County Family Court and awarding immediate physical/legal custody to John Maiden, the biological father of Elizabeth, Victoria, and Aurelia. This order applies to these children. And all further relief that the court deems necessary to correct past violations of the civil rights of Maiden and his children. That's letting them know I'm coming after them with a civil suit. And it is further ordered that Clinton County Family Court prevent any/all third parties from making custody or visitation claims regarding aforementioned minor children in any future proceedings according to the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Troxel versus Grandel, which they never mention in Clinton County Family Court. They basically say, or Maxwell does this, she is, her position is magnified to the extreme here. And whatever she says, I don't know what agreement they have, but whatever Maxwell writes up is basically, she could have written something on toilet paper and submitted it, and Wallace and Bruno wiped their asses with it, run it up the flagpole, smell it, and salute it, and there you have it. So it is further ordered that the minor children be physically returned to their biological father, John Maiden, who is a citizen of New York State residing in Clinton County, New York, and Cheryl Maxwell be prevented from any further representation of the children. Maxwell is compromised by her actions and assertions in violation of New York State law, ethical standards for attorneys for children, and highly prejudicial decisions in support of Keith Bruno, the biased judge who recused himself as a result of conflict of interest, responsible for extreme parental alienation and violation of Maiden's parental rights back to 2019 with this particular cast of characters. As guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the New York State domestic relations laws. And it is further ordered that the court, having dispensed with the search of the statewide registry of orders of protection, the sex offender registry, and the family court's warrants and child protective records, because these databases have been reviewed within the last 90 days, as they try to stick it up my ass once again. And it is further ordered that service of a copy of this order to show cause, together with the papers upon which it is granted by personal service to the attorneys for Carnahan and Ormsby. I don't know if I feel like doing that. We'll see. I'll start with the court. Wherefore I, John Maiden, respectfully request this order to show cause be granted, and that I have such further relief as some other legitimate court may find just and proper. Clinton County Family Court, under the auspices of Judges Bruno and Lawless, is biased and has taken multiple illegal actions against John Maiden. This court should be held accountable to prevent further destruction of families and people's lives by these corrupt, biased individuals. All future consideration of this family court matter must be assigned to a different jurisdiction for the sake of justice and the sake of Elizabeth, Victoria, and Aurelia. I signed that yesterday. So the last thing that we have is the lovely Exhibit A that I keep going back to. What Kristen sent to me, and it's juicy. So yeah, I'm ready. Let's let's see how this goes now. I'm certainly more than capable of, let's rock and roll. Let's see you stand up to the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, which by statute you are bound to adhere to. And it's plain and clear in the law. I'm not going to go into that, and I didn't go into it in the petition, because if you're going to push me on it, then I'm going to use it in court, and you know what that looks like. If you don't, then you're fucking dumber than I thought. But, yeah, the UCCJEA is a statutory requirement. It's not like if you want to, we don't have to, the best interest of the children. No. The UCCJEA is enacted and agreed to by 49 states in the United States, who really can't agree on anything. The only state that doesn't participate is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Why that is, I have no idea. But the UCCJEA governs the interstate movement and custody of minor children, and it establishes home state jurisdiction, which is New York State, for at least 6 months since these children were ever removed. Now, my daughters were taken out of New York State on Columbus Day weekend, I believe, and there's evidence all over the place to back that up. But what you saw from the time they issued that temporary custody order was that my daughters were never enrolled in school up here. They never attempted to establish a permanent residence because their plan the whole time was to flee to Alabama. I have since found out that my daughters are enrolled in school in Alabama, that they have been set back an entire year educationally because of the abuse of Kristen, because of the abuse and neglect by Kristen and Ricky and anybody else that's been involved in this, have set my daughters back in many ways, and I am prepared to defend them and defend my family against further abuse by this court. So let's see how this goes. What's coming next is going to be another order to show cause to remove Maxwell. And I can go back to 2019, and I have her own words where she defends Keith Bruno, regarding my appeal, when Maxwell is an officer of the court. She's a lawyer. She knows that the standards for conflict of interest don't involve anything that I need to prove. Those standards of conflict of interest and the need for recusal are based on any appearance of impropriety, a mere appearance of impropriety. That's why the appellate level just held their nose and said, look, we're throwing it back to you. You got to do better than this. But they didn't know that the prick they were throwing it back to was lawless. So here we go. Maybe I'll end up in prison. Maybe I'll end up dead. Maybe you'll never hear from me again. Maybe my cancer will recur. Maybe if any one of my, other physical problems and stuff will get out of control and I won't be able to talk to you guys again. So this might and always will be my last opportunity every time I do this to document these things and, hope for the best. I'm being told that my children don't want anything. They're brainwashed. I'm not going to blame 12, 13, and 14-year-old girls who have been brainwashed by Ricky and Kristen for 10 years and now brainwashed by Lynn Ormsby and threatened with all kinds of separation, and you're going to be every other thing in the book. So, my God, this is tragic. Let's do it.